Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Coffee with Kevin, and this is my coffee. And truly, truly, I am blessed. We are blessed here, and I'll tell you about that in a little while. Mm. Raise your cup if you have one. Got a nice hot cup of coffee, a cup of tea, hot chocolate, or a cold drink. Maybe you're drinking water, maybe you're drinking a smoothie. It doesn't matter. Maybe you put something in it. That doesn't matter either. Welcome to Tuesday morning. Mm-mm-mm. And of course, I'm Kevin Martin, a mindset coach with positive effects, coaching and hypnosis. Hey, everyone. Well, first off, before we get into everything, yes, it is. Yes, it is the first day of October. But last week, excuse me, last week, I am here I'm here in Tampa area. We had a devastating, devastating storm that moved up the coast and went inland in northern in the Panhandle, and then just went right up and tore through Georgia and North Carolina and Kentucky, and it was devastating. Lives were lost, homes were lost, materials were lost. It was just they're looking like $10 billion now. It's just horrific. Fortunately, fortunately, where we live, when we lived not far from the coast, but where we lived didn't get hardly any damage. We got gust and they were pretty hard, but we didn't get flooding or anything like that. We were very fortunate. We were blessed, and that we truly were. Mm, yeah, I know some people that weren't anywhere near as blessed, and I've seen the video on TV of just places that aren't more than 15 minutes to a half an hour from me, and it was devastating, devastating. And when things like that happen in your life, the first thing I do is I'm thankful. I'm thankful. I say thank you and I love you to God. The very first thing when something like that happens, even if it's smaller, but especially something like that, gratitude is a big thing. And if you're not practicing gratitude on a daily basis, please, please, please do. It will help you get through many, many, many things. Yeah. Well, here we are, the first day of October. We have gone 9 months through this year of 2024. It's amazing that this has happened. It really, truly, truly is. We got to get, we got 3 months left of this year. I don't want them to go by as fast. I want to get a lot accomplished in these last 3 months. And now I'm just getting clear on what I want to do. And that's part of what we're talking about today. But before we get into that, I need a little help. I need a little help. There's so many great things happen. Oh, I got to go in the right direction. So many great things happening today in history. In 1890, Yosemite National Park was established. 134 years ago. I'm trying fast math here. Yosemite National Park was established, and there's so many good things in Yosemite National Park. In 1908, the probably most popular car of that century, Model T, was released, was unveiled. If I remember right from the Model T, you can have it in any color you want as long as it's black, because that's the only color they made it in. In 1920, science, I picked this because I love it. Scientific American, the science magazine of the day, reports that radio will soon be used to transmit music to the home. Awesome. And here we are, 104 years later, and we got internet. You got Wi-Fi transmitting music to the home. And I guess I love that so much. I put it twice. 1962 was not Scientific American reports. Of course, that was in 1920, but 1962 was supposed to be the first show on today. Was the first show with Johnny Carson. Those of you that are old enough remember Johnny Carson. He ran the Tonight Show for many, many, many years, and then he got it was taken over when he retired by Jay Leno, and then it was taken over by, I'll remember his name as soon as the show's up. Those of you that are on there, you can comment to me and tell me who's running the Tonight Show. He's a comedian. I can picture his face. I just can't get his name. And what you can't see is in 1924, today is the birthday. In 1924, guess what? He's still alive. 100 years old. Jimmy Carter, President Jimmy Carter, turns 100 years old today. No matter what you thought of him when he was president, I am so impressed what he did in his years after president. He's the oldest, longest living president. And it is just, it's amazing. But after he became president, after he left presidency, he traveled the world as a diplomat, trying to straighten out different problems in different parts of the world. He was retired, and he into his 70s. I think he was still doing that. He was traveling in some of the most difficult places, some of the most dangerous places, and trying to smooth out and negotiate peace. It's amazing. I can say he is a man, not was a man, he is a man of integrity and someone to research and look up to. And he just came from being a simple peanut farmer. That was his story. Those of you that don't remember anything because you weren't born with Jimmy Carter, yeah, look him up. He's got quite the history. He's got quite the history. Okay, let's get back into what we usually do here. We usually talk about coffee, and I've got coffee. Mm-mm-mm. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. The coffee is flowing today. It is good. And what are we talking about today? Oh, we got a couple comments here. Jimmy Fallon, thank you, Facebook user. And I think that Facebook user, since they said good morning, honey, I think that Facebook user is my wife, Brenda, my lovely wife. At least I'm hoping that, because I don't know who else is going to say good morning, honey, to me. If you're on Facebook, please comment in. And if you're on LinkedIn, please comment in. I won't see it here live, but I'm going to go check it out. And if you're on YouTube as well, I can check it out afterwards. Wow. Today I wanted to talk about something that's near and dear to me, because I've felt the impact of not having what we're just about to talk about. Let's go with our first quote. And I love this quote. It's in when Pope John Paul said, "Many stumble through life on the edge of the abyss." I just love the imagination there and thinking about what it is, stumbling on the edge of abyss without knowing where they're going. I think that was very astute of Pope John Paul, and to know that about people, is that they live their lives sometimes just taking whatever's coming to them and not setting a direction, not having a purposeful life. We can talk about, and I've talked about this before, living in the present. Living in the present does not mean you're just there for whatever happens. Living in the present means you're able to be aware of what's going on and really take it in. Like I was talking about gratitude. If you're living in the present, you're noticing the things you can be grateful for. But it doesn't mean that you never think about the future, that you never learn from the past. That's what the past is good for learning. It means that you're very, very much aware, but it doesn't mean you're just floating and on stumbling on the edge of the abyss. You need direction. I saw this and I love this. I can't change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust my sails to always reach my destination. That's Jimmy Dean. Meaning there's going to be all sorts of stuff that we can't control. There's going to be all sorts of external stuff. Here, we had something really, really major that couldn't be controlled, that devastating hurricane that turned into a Cat 4. That's one step below the strongest hurricane. 140-mile-an-hour winds. Okay? I can't change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust my sails. Meaning, meaning no matter what happens to me, I can get back on the horse and start riding in the direction I was riding before, if that's still appropriate. Sometimes through major intense things, we find that maybe the direction we were in wasn't the right direction, and we find a new direction. Sometimes we're blessed with that. I read a lot of stories of people through tragedies, they found a new direction. And one of those stories is mine, as a matter of fact, through major tragedies as I was building businesses back 20 years ago, in tragedies with my adoptive son, who we're trying to get help for. I found a way to help him, which ended up turning me into what I do today, which is helping people with neurolinguistic programming and hypnosis. It's just wonderful. So sometimes we go through events that change our life, we have no control over it, and then we change our own direction. And this last one I liked a lot. Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu was a sage and a Buddhist sage. If you do not change direction, you may end up where you are heading. I think that's funny. Common sense. If you know you're heading nowhere good, if you know you're not heading in the direction you want to, then it makes sense. You got to change your direction. And I'm going to go to another quote that basically says it all. If you're doing the same thing and getting the same results, actually it says if you're constantly doing the same thing, you're always going to get the same results. So change what you're doing. That's changing the direction. If those results aren't what you want, if you're constantly trying something and not able to get what you want, change it up. Try something else. That's the changing of your direction. You know what the key to this whole thing is just awareness. I'm going to go back to that. It's not exactly present, but awareness, being aware of where you're going in life, what you want out of life, what steps are you taking to get there. Now, I mentioned earlier that this whole subject is near and dear to me because I find myself many times stumbling on that edge of abyss. All right. And that's even long after I got to learn all these things I learned. There are still times when I step away from that focused, directive life and I just live it as to what's the next day going to bring me without having the direction, without having the real focus. Then I realize I get into what I call a slump. I'll go weeks and weeks and say, oh my goodness, I'm not doing what I needed to do. I'm not doing what I wanted to do. I'm not in that direction. And I get back in on the path that I want and start heading in that direction. So how do you do that? You might be asking, how do you do that? How do you set your direction in the first place? I love this exercise. This is an exercise I've done, and maybe you've done it before, but it's so much fun. It's sit down with a piece of paper, a notepad, whatever it is, get something, and then say, okay, what is it what I would really like in life? If I had no limits, that's the key. If I had no limits, unlimited money or unlimited resources, what is it I'd like to do? What is it I'd like in life? and just write it down and keep it flowing. There's going to be some absurd things and some impossible things, maybe. Maybe you know what? When I was a kid, I thought about being an astronaut. I thought about, whoa, wouldn't it be cool to go to Mars? Well, within the next 5 years, we're going to be setting people off to Mars, right? It's finally happening, but it's going to happen, right? If you wanted to go into space, it's available for non astronauts now. It's available, and it'll be much more available in the next 5 to 10 years. So nothing's impossible. Nothing's impossible. So just write it all down. Get all these things. Maybe you have these dreams. Maybe you want a Bugatti, or maybe you want this or that. It doesn't matter. This writing all down has to do with your imagination and no limits. And when you finish that list, and just go all the way, man. Go all the way. When you finish that list, come back to it. Give it time to settle in, but come to it. Come back to it. And say, okay, what's more realistic? What's more realistic for me at this time in my life? That's really going to be good, though. And start looking at those things. And then when you got that nailed down and you've chosen a bunch of them, pick the top three. Pick the top three. And then rewrite them. Rewrite them on a clean sheet of paper. The top three. And write why you want them and what will happen if you get them. And you can also figure out what won't happen if you get them, or let's reverse this, what will happen if you don't get them. I want you to look at these in a couple of different ways. It gives you motivation. And then the last thing is, okay, what is the very one thing I can do to start this? The very one thing, the easiest first step that I can say I took a first step on each one of those. And then you can put down what the next several steps are for each one of those as well. Might want to that third one you can divide into columns. It makes it easier. You put 3 columns, and you put your 3 goals that you want, and then you write all that stuff in there. It is just a phenomenal journey. Just doing that one thing will light you up in ways. And if you get to those 3 columns, and you take the first step for each of those goals, then you're on your way. That direction, you're actually focusing your mind on where you want to go. And then you start to filter out everything else. And you're basically seeing a lot of what you want, a lot of opportunities to get to where you want to go. And life becomes, you're way off the edge of that abyss. You're on your path and you're going. It is such a wonderful life to live that way. So if you're listening to this, when you stop, take out that piece of paper and go through it. Take 10 minutes or more and just whip out all those wonderful things that you love to do, that you want to do. With no limits, remember, nothing is holding you back from being able to do it. Nothing is holding you back from being able to do it. It's just so cool. And maybe you can use that list later on after you've got yourself on the direction of the 3 main things and you start achieving them. Go back to that list and say, okay, what else is possible here? What else is realistic here that I really want? And things might be getting more realistic every time you go back to this page. It is just a cool exercise. All right. This has been Coffee with Kevin. And I hope I have helped you at least start to set your sails, or at least start to think about putting up your sails to start sailing in the direction that you want. Yes. So until next week, you have an incredible rest of the day, fantastic rest of the week. And you know, if you've been here before, you know it's in your power. I don't have to wish it for you. You can make it for you. All right. Take care, all.